African countries are experiencing significant economic losses due to climate-related disasters, which cost them between 2 to 5% of their GDP every year. As the continent grapples with these challenges, the cost of climate adaptation is projected to reach $50 billion by the year 2030. This issue was discussed at the second nation media group Earthwise summit, prompting urgent calls for the continent to claim its rightful place in global climate discussions and solutions to avoid bearing the heaviest burden of the crisis it did not largely create. NTV's Helen Aura was there.
Despite being the least contributor to global warming, climate change disproportionately affects Africa. In the past year alone, changes in climatic patterns have disrupted many nations, further exposing the lack of preparedness and measures to combat the situation.
The Horn of Africa experienced in its longest drought in 40 years, enduring 5 consecutive failed rainfall seasons. And due to these prolonged droughts, 256 people were displaced here in Kenya, and at least 2.5 million heads of livestock died.
The climate crisis requires massive investments to support vulnerable developing countries' transition to a resilient, low-carbon and nature-positive development. And addressing climate change impacts and global inequalities requires scale-up financing for adaptation and mitigation. The new goal is to scale up and replace the goal that was reached in Copenhagen in 2009 that was set at $100 billion annually.
Earthwise Summit 2024.
The second edition of the Nation Media Group's Earthwise Summit 2024, with the theme Equity, Innovation and Resilience in the Face of Climate Change, has stressed the need for African countries to take up their rightful position lest they miss the mark.
As we head into COP29, we must be focusing on ensuring that climate change, adaptation and just transitions for vulnerable communities remain at the center of global negotiations. The decisions that are made at Baku will impact generations to come.
The financial needs of developing countries outstrip the $100 billion US dollars per year goal that was set 15 years ago. As a continent, we need to ensure that the support for adaptation and loss and damage comes primarily in the form of grants and concessional financing, and not loans in the newly collective quantified call.
This comes as African countries continuously lose 2 to 5% of their GDP annually to climate-related disasters. On the other hand, the community has a major role in climate change and adaptation. But some say lack of political goodwill oftentimes is the weak link.
The enforcement mechanisms are weak. So we could start there and see maybe enforceability, even for ordinary people to be able to hold those who have to do the work to account. We may need stronger enforceability mechanism put in place.
With just 40 days to COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, African countries have been tasked to take up their rightful positions in climate financing and mitigation. This will ensure they are well cushioned against climate calamities. Helen Aura, NTV.